It is only when I awake to the brightness of the morning and peer through my window that I am able to gaze upon the beckoning North Sea and behold my reason for coming. The window is small, but the prospect of the shimmering, luminous, still sea below is extensive and inviting. Looking down upon the grassy verge bordering the cliff's edge, I imagine I see the very spot where over a century ago a photographer had taken a picture of two holidaymakers, beautiful in their long white dresses and broad white floral hats. The older of the two, perhaps a governess, demurely reads a book, while a young girl whose hair reaches her waist gazes out to what she and all those around her would have called the German Ocean, an appellation that persisted until after the First World War, when, because of Germany's association with brutal warfare, there was a desire to alter the sea's name. Eager to start my walk along the top of the Cromer cliffs, I hurry through breakfast. After asking the waitress which is the best route to take, I start out for the coastal path to Sheringham, an old fishing village and market town about 5 miles from where I am staying. Initially, I must wander away from the west cliffs and follow a road packed with day trippers making the most of the late autumnal sunshine. What a relief, eventually, to reach a footpath that allows me to turn off the pavement and leave behind the rumble and exhaust of their cars. I climb up a scraggly, wandering, sandy path embossed with the footprints of other walkers. Tall, crisping grasses buffeted by blasts of wind border the trail. Among their bent blades grow prickly, dry weeds, the occasional spent wildflower, and tangled ferns soon to turn a russet brown. The sea gradually becomes visible. A broad, vibrantly luminous blue band emerges across the horizon. Along the way, my thoughts turn to the once celebrated Clement Scott, the London theatre critic and travel writer, who in the early summer of 1883 took the train to Cromer and fell in love with its landscape. Scott particularly admired the surrounding cliffs, especially those that stand 200 feet above the sea. He composed poems, often rather bad ones, that celebrate the cliff's power to relax the mind. In one, he speaks of lying on his back amidst flowers and grasses while lazily listening to travelers pass by and to the sea breaking at the foot of the crags. He wondered why, given this possibility, his compatriots choose rather to race around the continent, to seek cures and pleasures in fashionable spas, alpine valleys, and castles on the Rhine. In Cromer, he believed, one could rest among the clover and sleep off care. Delighting in where I tread, I warm to his sentiment. The coastal trail eventually draws precariously close to the edge of the crumbling cliffs. Cautiously stepping forward, I look down upon long stretches of an empty beach far below, where after winter storms, fishermen might once have hunted for jet and amber washed up on the sands, or where at all seasons, zoologists and enthusiastic amateurs might have spent hours collecting shells, marine specimens, and seaweeds for their cabinets and aquariums. The tide must be almost full, for it sweeps past the wooden groins, installed to tame the sea's surges and protect the shoreline. The incoming waves leave a damp fringe at the water's edge, and when withdrawing, deposit jagged arrangements of glistening pebbles. Farther out, the sea swells as if some force, were continuously heaving its body beneath the water's surface. For a while, I am blissfully alone, except for the companionship of my shadow that confirms I am here, and for the moment away from my books. Daring to draw closer, I step forward even closer and gain an alarming sense of just how vulnerable these cliffs are. The weight of my foot loosens a soft, loose clump of stones, earth, and grass, clinging desperately to the cliff's edge. This bit of land will soon lose its hold and tumble down. Alarmed, I look to my left and to my right and become even more aware of the cliff's rough, irregular, and damaged outline. I step back. Quite unexpectedly, perhaps predictably, while standing close to the cliff's edge, Edward Lear's limerick, "Old Person from Cromer," comes to mind. There was an old person of Cromer who stood on one leg to read Homer. When he found he grew stiff, he jumped over the cliff, which concluded that person from Cromer. Here, rhyme and meter matter more than sense, so the demise of this old person from Cromer is far from tragic. Lear's nonsense transports both him and the reader to a blithe, painless world, to a place where death is a mere lark. Nonsense, however, cannot always dismiss the diligence of memory, nor can it scorn the powers of association. Hence, while I am reciting the limerick to myself, an unsettling, long-suppressed reminder of a distressing incident from my 1952 CHA holiday in Cromer soon surfaces to check the verse's carefree spirit. I suddenly recall that on one of the programmed daily rambles from Abbeville, I, completely oblivious to any danger and eager to be in view of the sea, had run exuberantly ahead of the group, straight and fast toward the very edge of a towering cliff. My alarmed father, certain I was about to plunge to my death, frantically shouted after me. His fright almost put an end to our holiday. Dreadfully shaken, he would have been in no mood to heed the reassurance once offered by a woman who, in the early 1800s, upon noticing a child hanging his head and upper body over the edge of a lofty Cromer cliff, coolly declared to a concerned onlooker that all children would do so and would come to no harm. Slightly breathless, I trudge up to where the cliffs are at their tallest. In earlier days, from this spot, I might have paused to watch fishing boats returning to shore or gazed at countless trade vessels making their way to and from Newcastle, Sunderland, and the Baltic. I might have noticed how those in the foreground were almost hidden by deep shades, while those in the second distance were strongly illuminated by the sun, and those in the last distance invested with a grey or purple hue. On this early Saturday afternoon, however, neither freighter nor sail is in sight. Needing a rest, I sit on a bench placed to reward those who have come this far. Soothed by cooling breezes, I look down upon the roofs of Cromer, snugly nestled in a gap between two lofty sets of cliffs. Hence, the supposed origin of the town's name, a North Country word for a gap in the cliffs. There's also the suggestion that Cromer is derived from Cromer, meaning the Lake of Crows. Refreshed, I continue my ramble. As the day advances, however, I am less alone. Having finished their morning rituals, more and more people are out walking, often with their dogs. Drawing closer to Sheringham, I cannot take a step without overhearing their incessant chatter, accompanied by the panting or sniffling of man's best friend. Both create a kind of static that interferes with and distorts the sea's distant music. It is at moments like this that I more fully understand why I often prefer to walk where few others tread, where the natural world is my sole companion. In an attempt to discover a less populated way, I descend into Lower Sheringham via a steep concrete ramp that leads to a sea wall. Incoming waves crash into this barrier and leave a residue of retreating foam that maps the sea's course over and among the piled rocks protecting the shore. Erosion is a continuous problem. The seawall doubles as a promenade upon which stands a line of locked, colorful beach huts. The season is over. Their backs seem to buttress the crumbling cliffs. Further along, I pass a drab outdoor cafe where a handful of customers, relishing what soon will be no more, relax under a cloudless sky. A few paces on, a scattered few rest on a shingle beach. Mesmerized by the rhythm of the waves, a seated couple, still and silent, face the incoming tide. Alone, a person with a blanket draped around her shoulders reads in a folding chair. No one steps into the chilling sea. Proceeding inland, I reach Upper Sheringham. This is where many of the day trippers have come. The main street is awash and bustling with people who, looking for something to do, frequent trendy cafes and shops. Businesses that retain a facade of historical charm, but sadly, too often exhibit a jumble of bric-a-brac and souvenirs within. I amble by the occasional flintstone cottage where years ago the Sheringham fishermen had resided. Recently restored and scrubbed clean, these dwellings have now been consigned to the realm of the picturesque that all too often sanitizes, perhaps romanticizes, the loss, fear, and danger attending those who years ago earned their living out upon the North Sea. Almost forgotten is a simple prayer once repeated by Sheringham fishermen. Pray God lead us, pray God speed us, from all evil defend us. Fish for our pains God send us, well to fish and well to haul, and what He pleases to pay all. A fine night to land our nets, and safe in with the land. Pray God hear my prayer. Up until the 1970s, fleets of fishing boats once congregated on Sheringham shore. Plentiful supplies of lobster, crabs, and whelks supplied the London market. Only 8 boats remain. Other forms of income now sustain this place, one, of course, being tourism. To escape both commerce and crowds, I turn down an alley where I spot an ordinary, almost empty fish and chip shop. Hungry and nostalgic, I devour a portion of beer-battered plaice with mushy peas. A customer tells me about a train that will return me to Cromer. Slightly fatigued, I welcome his suggestion and find my way to a tiny station where, after exchanging pleasantries with a couple sitting on an adjoining bench, I step onto a train that shortly arrives in Cromer. Even though the hours are passing, the late afternoon light still dazzles. Day visitors are departing. A stillness begins to settle over the beachfront. Loath to leave the seashore and go back to my hotel, I walk down close to the sea and stroll for a while along Cromer's esplanade, where a snack truck decorated with brash pink stripes and enlarged pictures of delicious dairy whippy ice cream and tasty burgers, seduces me. Tempted by their siren song, I hasten to join people waiting at the counter and order a gaudy Snickers sundae, an enchantment certainly not possible in 1952 when rationing was still in effect. After breathing in the atmosphere of ice cream, I flee and make my way back to my hotel room.